Welcome to the historic Willow Hill School and the Willow Hill Heritage and Renaissance Center and the gardens here at Willow Hill. Willow Hill was one of the first schools for African Americans in Willow County, Georgia, founded in 1874. This current site, the sixth and final Willow Hill, was built in 1954 as an equalization school to delay segregation. In 2005, the descendants of the school founders founded the Willow Hill Heritage and Renaissance Center to honor our ancestors and to create new growth and opportunity in the community. Please join me as we do a virtual tour of the grounds and the museum site here at the Willow Hill Heritage and Renaissance Center in Willow County, Georgia. Welcome to the latest addition to the campus at the Willow Hill Heritage and Renaissance Center. This is a Wi-Fi installed learning center for area youth as part of COVID-19 prevention, where they can come and study outdoors. This is the first addition to the campus here at Willow Hill in 67 years. We hope that this campus will provide an opportunity of learning in spite of the pandemic, that students can continue the learning process. This is the entrance of the old Willow Hill School and the current Willow Hill Heritage and Renaissance Center. These grounds are sacred to me. This was my first school. My mother attended Willow Hill. My grandmother attended Willow Hill. And my great-grandfather was on the board of trustees from one of the founding families of this school. So please come and join me as we take a virtual tour of the museum to see some, but not all, of the artifacts and sites that we have here. Come. Touch these walls with kindness, for within this space, many living people dreamed free dreams and finally saw them alive. Touch these walls with laughter for those who struggled and suffered whole lifetimes in fear, degradation, and hollow dishonor. Celebrate the resolve of those who overcame deprivation of body, but never of spirit. Lean lightly against these walls and let your fingers feel the still resolve of the souls who taught life lessons here. Stand and know the lessons learned here, taught by love, taught by hope, taught by vision, taught with compassion. Touch and be touched by the walls of Willow Hill. They stand for the goodness of what can be in humanity. Within these walls, the impossible became reality. Fear does not reside here. Only love, love of God, love of people, love of country. May you feel the love of Willow Hill as you enter these doors. As you enter these walls, as you enter this building, you will first see the artifacts and pictures and the love of our homeland, Africa. Understand the connection and what it means for African Americans who came from the shores of Africa to America, passed through the enslavement, and founded schools and institutions. Now you will go into the section which depicts the story of African American slavery in the United States, Georgia, and Bullock County. Many generations have gone. We have been in the storm too long. Come and look at some of the exhibits and rooms which depict life in America post-slavery and the whole struggle of African Americans to declare their freedom and independence. This is our quilt room, and it has the quilts collection of my wife's great grandmother, Georgia Anna Bird, who was born in 1867. These quilts were lost for a long time and had been packed away. But I dare say that she has one of the largest complete collections of African American quilts. In this room also you would have bed, a graphanola phone, and stove and wash machine and trunk from this era. This bed is from the George Donaldson's place, and George Donaldson was from one of the founding families of the Willow Hill School. Take a look at one of the quilts. Just do a close-up and look at the quality of these quilts. Over 100 years old, but yet they in very good shape. This is the Turkey Track quilt. All of these quilts were made by Georgia Anna Bird. This important room, conference room, depicts an American Civil War story, the tragedy at Ebenezer Creek in Effingham County, Georgia. When Sherman and his army marched from Atlanta on their way to Savannah, they did camp in Bullock County, Georgia at the Neville's Creek Church, after which several of my ancestors from the Hodges family followed Sherman and they passed near Ebenezer Creek. At Ebenezer Creek, the Confederate Army was following Sherman's army, so after the soldiers and many have passed on, there was a group of slaves following him. Orders was given to take up the Platoon Bridge, and many old ladies and children drowned trying to follow Sherman's army. Others were turned back to their slave owner. This created a great tragedy for which Abraham Lincoln sent Stanton down to address the issue. And there was a meeting in Savannah, and the discussion of the 40 acres and a mule came up. And that is the origin of that story, 40 acres and a mule, which was promised to African Americans from South Carolina all the way down to the St. Johns River in Florida. This room depicts slavery in Coastal Georgia, More Than Property, which talks about the various aspects of slavery, urban, rural, and central to all of this was cotton. Cotton increased the slave need in the United States, which led to the growth of slavery in Bullock County and surrounding counties. I, myself, as a lad, picked this cotton. This exhibit was donated to the Willow Hill Heritage and Renaissance Center by the Georgia Southern College Museum. This timeline depicts slavery in Coastal Plains, Georgia, from 1581, when the first African slaves were brought to St. Augustine, Florida. I might also say that African Americans came to the United States prior to this time. In 1619, the first African slaves were brought to Jamestown, Virginia by the English. And in 1716, the end of the Yamasee War, South Carolina planters hoped to improve relations with Native Americans by focusing their efforts on acquiring Africans as slaves rather than as Indians. When Georgia was first founded in 1733, slavery was prohibited. But by 1750, slaves were in Georgia because of the economic importance. And then, after the Civil War, we came to the 14th, 15th Amendments and the Emancipation, which ended slavery in Georgia, and later in the 2000 acknowledgement of slavery was by putting a bronze statue on the banks of the Savannah River on Riverfront Street. Other photographs depict a slave auction house, a slave family, and there's one last picture I want to show, which in my mind depicts the brutality of slavery. This young man suffered much through the ills of slavery. This is a typical classroom in 1956 when I started to school here at Willow Hill. The teacher's desk was always in the front. There was the American flag, a place for the coats to hang, the bookcase, and in the rear of the classroom, there would be an entrance door to the boys' restroom and the girls' restroom. And then there was a sink between the two restrooms. Also, there was a closet just as you come in the door where the teacher would hang her coats, and there would also be instruction materials. At that time, there was no air conditioning in the room, and the windows were open for fresh air. And the teachers would instruct, and there was at least 2 exercise periods per day. The heat was by steam heat. And these were very joyous time. This was the new equalization schools that were built in 1954 to delay integration in Bullock County, Georgia. And also these schools were built all across the South. This is the clinic room of the old Willow Hill School. It was in this room that we received the vaccination for polio. And this was also where the visiting nurse would come every so often to attend to students at the schools for vaccination. Also, if a child was ill, this would be the room. It has been redecorated in African decor with African style lamps and artifacts and photographs from the continent of Africa. This is the William James Room, which honored the graduates of the old Statesboro High and Industrial School, founded in 1907, renamed the William James High School in honor of Professor William James, who helped to start the school in 1907. These are the photographs of many of the graduates that have gone through this institution. Central here is a photograph of the farmers of Bullock County meeting at the Statesboro High and Industrial School with many of the prominent citizens on the front row of Bullock County, including Dr. Harvey Van Buren, Miss Julia Pearl Bryant, Mr. John Lawton, Mr. Roosevelt Campbell, Mr. Peter Wilson, Mr. Garfield Hall, and many, many other citizens where the farmers met to discuss new farming techniques. This represents the oldest photograph that we were able to locate from the class of 1921. Welcome to the Primitive Baptist Room, which depicts the history of the Primitive Baptist Church of Bullock and surrounding counties. The original founders of the Willow Hill School were Primitive Baptists. Many of them came out of the white Neville's Creek Primitive Baptist Church, the oldest Primitive Baptist church in Georgia and Bullock County, and started their own church, with Banks Creek being the first in 1879. Mount Pisgah and Old Bethel are the other two early Black Primitive Baptist churches. These churches later joined other Primitive Baptist churches in several counties around Bullock County and formed the Mount Pleasant Association in 1887. This room tells the history and story of these early African Americans, former slaves, as they came out and started their own institutions and churches. This quilt, located in the Primitive Baptist Room, put together by Miss Christine Lanes, tells the wonderful history of the Hodges family and the history of the Primitive Baptist Church of Bullock County, Georgia. A great masterpiece that was donated to our museum and now hangs in the Primitive Baptist Room. Thank you, Christine. This is the old library of the old Willow Hill School, which houses an exhibit on the history of the Willow Hill School. Several artifacts are located in this room, which includes an extensive collection of obituaries, as well as an extensive collection of oral recordings of African Americans from Bullock County, Georgia. Also in this room, you will find the 1988 National History Day exhibit by my daughter, Dr. Nkenge Jackson Flowers, who was then 13 years old. This project would win second place in the state of Ohio and would go on to win first place in the nation at National History Day. This project also won recognition from the Ohio Historical Society, and we're pleased that we could house this exhibit here. Also, I want to talk about a book that we have that you can purchase by going online, Defining Their Destiny. the history of the Willow Hill School and the people who worked together to create this school, including former slaves and the first teacher, Georgia Ann Riggs. Also, this book will talk about an incident in 1946 when the Ku Klux Klan came to the Willow Hill School and burned a cross to try to prevent African Americans from going to the polls and vote. They nevertheless did go to the polls and voted in 1946, which was the first time that African Americans would have voted since the 1890s. Let me introduce you to the board members of the Willow Hill Heritage and Renaissance Center, which was founded in 2005 to continue the legacy of the Willow Hill School, to honor the ancestors, and to create new opportunities through Renaissance, Heritage and Renaissance. First, we have Dr. Latasha Lee. Then we have Miss Patricia Willis. We have Miss Lami Allen Baker. We have Miss Hazel Lee Allen, a former teacher and student and currently living in the community. Dr. Kingate Jackson Flowers, Miss Willouise Jackson Harper, Dr. Hank Smith, cardiologist, Mr. Charles T. Harton, developer, Dr. Alvin Jackson, Mr. Larry Lee, radio station owner, Dr. Tiba Jackson, orthopedic, and Mr. Jelani Jackson, entrepreneur. These individuals met to help establish the Willow Hill Heritage and Renaissance Center in 2005.